All right, guys, we are here at Mike Maroon Ford. I'm going to walk through this Ford dealership and tell you which powertrains I would buy in the F-150s and maybe even their 3/4 tons. Thought I'd show you guys my truck parked next to this TRX. Doesn't look that bad. Okay, that's a monster. Pretty sweet rig right there. Start out with this Raptor right here. Not a bad looking Raptor, although I'm not a big fan of all the decals. Same with like the new TRX. Man, the less decals, the better. On my Rebel, I didn't get any of the decals. This is coming in at $84,000 just with the 3.5 EcoBoost. Now Ford and their 3.5 EcoBoost has been pretty solid. So if you're looking at the Raptors or the F-150s, oh, they have a TRD Pro here. I'll bet the guy that traded this in, I bet he got a fortune for this truck, because Toyotas are, the second gen Tundras are absolutely out of control with prices right now. Anyway, back to the 3.5 EcoBoost. I really think that the 3.5 EcoBoost it's a pretty reliable engine, and I would definitely recommend it now that they've gotten past that cam phaser issue. It does have an oil pump chain, and I like that a little bit better than what you see with the 2.7. I don't like the wet oil pump belt, but if you're just keeping something through warranty or maybe 150,000 miles, the wet oil pump belts have been fairly reliable with the 2.7. So it's not like it's become some huge problem. Just mentally, I don't like it, and I don't like them putting a maintenance item on one of the critical engine components that they didn't need to. I just don't see a reason. You know, my Hurricane's got a chain, the 3.5 EcoBoost has a chain. They should have just put a chain on the 2.7. Package like this Ford XLT, it's got the STX package. Pretty nice truck, really. When I drove these, we just drove an XLT. It was a pretty nice truck. This one has a little bit more on the on the options than the one I test drove, but $67,000, and it's got the 5-liter Coyote. So here's our first kind of engine comparison. The 5-liter Coyote, obviously, I would recommend it. It's been pretty reliable so far. If you watch the bearded Ford Tech, he has a lot of 5.0 content. I would recommend the 5-liter. I just don't want a loud V8, and comparing the 5-liter to, say, the Hurricane engine or a boosted engine where I'm at 5,000 feet and I tow up to like 10,000 feet. So for me, I don't like a naturally aspirated V8 if I'm buying something new, just because I get a lot more power at elevation at a boost. And I'm not planning to really keep it out of warranty. This is like an out of warranty truck to me, where you would still feel comfortable getting something like this out of warranty. Now with Fords, it doesn't matter what powertrain you're getting, whether it's the 5-liter, the 3.5, the 2.7, I would absolutely look at minimum changing your transmission fluid like every 30,000. Just do a drain and fill on it. They've had a colored past with this 10-speed with Ford and GM. Ford's handled it better than GM, but with all the Fords and the 10 speeds, I would just try to get that fluid out of there every 30 to 40,000 miles. Just maintain the crap out of it. You can get Next Gen's kit to upgrade the valve body. Really, the biggest problem they have is going to be a valve body in these. But overall, they've been pretty reliable after their CDF drum issue, which I believe was fixed in, 2022 maybe? So let's look at this. Let's look at this Tremor. I really like the Tremor package, but when I was comparing it to the Rebel, the cost was just too much, and Ford wasn't willing to negotiate. So this is coming in at $80,000 for this Tremor. It does have the 3.5 EcoBoost. So that to me was kind of the kicker right there. I mean, it was more than an RHO. So if you're looking at something like this versus those RHOs we just looked at, how are you going to do that? Like the high output Hurricane and the RHO compared to that, I mean, I guess unless you just want like a little more understated truck, the Tremor might be fine, but I'd pick the RHO all day, every day, especially for that price. And from what I've found, Ford doesn't really negotiate much, at least here in my neck of the woods. Here's another white Tremor. Let's see what this one's coming in at. Maybe they've got a little better deal on this guy. $70,000 on this one, and it's got the 5-liter. So $70,000 still, for me, $70,000 is, the Ram really ruined that market for everybody. I think they took the Tremors and everything else, and they're like, man, if you can get an RHO for this price, I just can't imagine buying a Tremor at that point. But that's just me. That's just how I feel about it. You guys can feel free to disagree in the comments. And Ford's little 2.7, I actually like this engine. So here we have this F-150, the STX. It's here's the problem I have with it though. So you've got the 2.7 EcoBoost. It's coming in at total MSRP of $51,000, which that's not terrible. That's like kind of maybe in Warlock territory. It does have the 4x4 package on it. It's not a terrible price. It's just, if you compare this to say, you know, like let's say it's a Warlock with the Hurricane's gonna outpace this 2.7, and I don't have the wet oil pump problem on the Hurricane, and the Hurricane has a better warranty, 10-year. So for me, Ford's tough, because if the 2.7s were maybe a little bit better deal, I do think they're really reliable. I mean, they've been tested. One thing I do like about the Fords is their 2.7 and their 3.5 have been out long enough where you don't feel like they're gonna be popping main bearings, and the same with the 5-liter. You don't feel like you're gonna have a Tundra or a GM 6.2-liter problem. So I do like that about the 2.7. I would just, you know, it would have to be a truck that, it would just have to be a truck that you really want. Like, I want Ford, and I don't care. I don't care if Ram's got good packages. I don't care if GM's got something better. I want a Ford. And if that's who you are, I think the 2.7 and the 3.5 and the 5.0 are all pretty good options. You just got to look at up armoring that transmission a little bit. Jumping up to something like this, you've got the 250s and the 350s over here. This is a 6.7 Power Stroke Lariat package, which is $87,000 with that 6.7. Got the, I believe that's the standard bed, and then it does have the FX4 package. Are they value? I don't know. You know, if you're comparing something like this again to the Rams, you got to just want the 6.7 and the Ford more than you want the Cummins. I think the ZF transmission, the Powerline 8 is probably going to be better than what you see in these 10 speeds. But Ford's had pretty good luck with their 10 speeds other than the valve bodies, and they've been taking care of their customers. So if you're looking at heavy duties, I think it doesn't matter if you're looking at GM, Ford, Ram. I think they're all fairly comparable as far as reliability is concerned, but I actually like the looks of the GM, I think, the most. There's not a lot of heavy duties on this lot. Those are the only 3 I could find back there, but it looks like they've kind of started replacing things with some Rangers, and we'll jump down to the Ranger real quick. So we test drove the Ranger recently, and we really liked it. It was the 2.7, but they are, you know, fairly expensive. They had a really good turning radius. We noticed that. The interior felt okay. It wasn't like top-notch quality, but the price was the killer for us. $55,000 for this. You're looking at the 2.7 EcoBoost. That is packing a punch. It's the 10-speed. The 2.7 in this is pretty good. It's really tested. Same with GM, but you do get the 10-speed automatic versus the 8-speed in the GM. But $55,000 total MSRP for an FX4. It is a Lariat package, so you know that bumps the price up. But why? I couldn't imagine buying a mid-size truck for that price when half tons and some of the 3/4 tons cost that. All right, so let's look at this a little bit trimmed down. This Ranger, this white one, XLT, a little bit different. Again, engine's made in Mexico, transmission in the US. $44,000 on this one. A little bit better deal. This is obviously the XLT with the 2.3. So, you know, comparing something like this to maybe the GM's Trail Boss, I do like the looks of the Ranger, but I think I like GM's a little bit better as far as looks are concerned. You'd have to go drive them both to see. The GM 2.7 is gonna have a little bit more torque than what you see in these 2.3s for sure. And then you jump down to something like this STX package in the Ranger, and it's pretty basic, but they still do have quite a bit of ground clearance in these Rangers. I'm impressed with even, you know, the lower packages. So $39,000, this is like the super value version of the Ranger. 2.3 EcoBoost. I mean, it's kind of vanilla, but it is still the 10-speed. You know, if you're looking for a vanilla truck that just kind of gets the job done, that is actually a pretty good value at $39,000. Oh, what am I saying? $39,000 for a mid-sized truck. Is that a good value? It's not a value. I guess in 2026, it kind of feels like value because we've been dealing with these high prices for so long, but geez. Let's go to this one, this STX, a gray one. Same thing, $40,000, so about $1,000 more. You don't get any bed liner, no utility package or anything, just a basic truck. From what I've seen, the Rangers have been pretty well loved. A lot of people online like them. I'm not a big Ford guy. Most people know that on the channel. Jump up to this red XLT. get one more example in here on the Rangers. Same thing, 2.3. This is a 25, $45,000. Yeah, a 25 sitting on the lot still. Oh, look at this. We got Steely's. We got Steely's. This is going to be the value package right here. Still the 2.3. 39,000. I'm not sure why I'd buy this with Steely's when I can get that other one over there, that black one, for the same price with aluminum wheels, and it looks a little nicer. So that's Ford in a nutshell. And then of course you've got the Maverick compact truck. I'm not going to go through these because I'm not that interested, but you know, these Lariats coming in at 40,000 for the Maverick. It's a little tiny bed with lots of payload and no ground clearance. It's a unibody truck. It is what it is. Here's some more F-150s, but really they don't have a lot here other than it kind of looks like everything's used over there on this lot. So, and when I was here, gosh, in October buying my Ram, I was testing out Fords here. They had a lot more trucks back in this area. Now they just don't have that many. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they're selling them all. They were pretty stingy on price. They didn't seem like they needed my business, which is why I kind of stopped looking at Ford. Ram actually seemed like they wanted to make a deal. The 2.7 EcoBoost, it's fine. Has the wet oil pump belt. I don't really like that. I don't like standard warranties anymore on these vehicles. I don't really like the 10-speed from Ford and GM. It felt sloppy when I drove it, but a lot of people are used to that. They're just not used to what good transmissions feel like. Other than that, Ford's Ford. They're not spinning main bearings, which I think is a big plus. Most of the recalls you look at for Ford are stupid things like backup cameras and things that aren't that big a deal. So I'd still recommend checking out the 2.7, the 3.5, and the 5-liter and the Fords. I think they're pretty decent powertrains. They've been tested a long time. They've been out forever, and they have good power. Thanks for watching. Till next time.